Breastfeeding can be very challenging. I reached 1 year of breastfeeding my second baby, and I loved this year, and I breastfed my first baby for about 1.5 years. And I can say now that breastfeeding is the most natural thing in the world for me and my babies, but that wasn't always the case. So in this video, as a mama who has nursed for years, a certified lactation counselor, childbirth educator, and doula, I'm going to share with you my personal journey and tips and tricks I've learned along the way, and I'm using specific questions that you guys asked me on the Built to Birth Instagram to help lead the way. At the end of this video, I'm going to share with you my top 5 tips for any mama's breastfeeding journey. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. So let's dive in. Question number 1, how did your breastfeeding experience compare among your children? With my first, everything I knew only in theory from what I had read or seen or heard from other moms. With my first, I was really nervous I wouldn't have enough milk, so I started pumping almost right away after birth within the first couple of weeks and kept that up for about 9 months, even though I really didn't need to. It was more of a comfort thing for me. I didn't like pumping, but it gave me reassurance that I was expressing enough milk for my body to keep making that amount of milk. So with my first, I was a lot more rigid about when to feed and for how long. I tracked everything. I fed on a schedule, unless she was showing hungry signs, of course. And it was just a lot more set. Again, this was for me because I think it gave me a sense of control during a time that was sort of unpredictable with my first baby. With my first too, she had jaundice, so I had to feed her at least every 3 hours a day and night, and she was really sleepy, so feedings were a lot more work. I'd have to undress her, put a cool washcloth on her back, blow on her, burp her between sides, anything and everything to keep her awake. Now with my second, she was born chunkier, and ironically, babies who are heavier at birth actually feed better in general. I was more comfortable. I trusted myself to make enough milk and my baby to know when and how much to eat. And so breastfeeding the second time around has been so much more relaxing. We didn't really ever do scheduled feedings. I still just feed her on demand when she wants to. I nurse her to sleep all the time, which I rarely did with my first. I never pumped this time around. I only used my Haka, which I think every breastfeeding mom should own, and I'll have it linked down below. Now for the first 6 weeks while my milk was coming in and regulating, I would use the Haka on one side while my daughter nursed on the other, and that helped with building up my milk supply, expressing milk to help avoid engorgement, and also gave me extra milk on hand in case I needed to bottle feed. To use the Haka, you simply pull back the top, suction it onto the breast, and then when you do get a letdown, it suctions the milk from the letdown and catches it in the bottle. It's super easy to use and enormously helpful. It's also great for clearing clogged milk ducts if that's something that you're prone to experiencing. I still use it from time to time if Ava sleeps longer at night and I'm too full in the morning. I just pop the Haka on during the first morning feed, and then I've got some milk I can add to her oatmeal later on. Second question is, how did the first couple of weeks go? How did you establish breastfeeding well early on? For both girls, the first week was pretty painful on my nipples. The second time though, it wasn't nearly as challenging because I knew how amazing breastfeeding could feel and I understood how to get a great latch, which I walk you through in this video that I'm linking right up here. But for the first 30 seconds of each feeding that first week, it was pretty painful, I'm not gonna lie. I would use lanolin between feeds, medicated gel pads, and would just go braless or shirtless to help air out the nipples. I've heard that silverettes are amazing, but I personally didn't use them. But nipple shields like the Haka Ladybugs are great too, and I'll have those things linked down below. Early on, I just fed as much as possible. With my first, I pumped within the first couple of weeks, which I don't recommend unless you know you're returning back to work and you want to start building up a supply. But if you don't start at the beginning, that's fine too, but usually you want to start pumping around 4 weeks. For my second, I just nursed her a lot. When in doubt, Bring baby to the breast or at least do skin to skin. Ideally, you'll want to be nursing at least every 3 hours during the day and at least every 4 to 6 hours at night. The amount of milk your body makes is based on supply and demand. If the demand is being made, aka milk is being removed from your breasts, then the supply will be created, aka your body will make that amount of milk. The best thing you can do is to express milk within an hour after birth and then continue expressing milk either using your baby or your pump fully and frequently. Third question, how the heck did you find time to pump while breastfeeding? I would do it first thing in the morning and before going to bed, and for optimal milk output, a middle of the night pump if you can. In the mornings, I would sit somewhere I could either see my baby, and the other times my baby would be sleeping, so that's how I found the time. Fourth question, how long did I breastfeed my kids for? For my first, I breastfed for about 15 months, and I'm still breastfeeding my second, who just turned 1 recently, and I don't have plans to stop anytime soon. Question number 5 is, what are your favorite tips and supplements to increase supply? My favorite tip is to nurse or pump more if you're noticing a dip in your supply. Now, a lot of moms, myself included, get nervous around 4 to 8 weeks after birth when their breasts don't feel as full as they did at the beginning, and they think that they're not making enough. Usually, that's not the case. It's just your milk regulating. If baby is fussy after feeds, like they're still wanting more, if they aren't gaining weight or aren't having enough wet diapers, then my tips for you are to try to find as much time in your schedule to stay around the house, lounge in bed even, and do lots of skin to skin and nursing with your baby, or power pump 1 to 2 times per day for 3 days. Power pumping is when you pump for 20 minutes, rest for 10, pump for 10 minutes, rest for 10 minutes, and then pump again for 10 minutes. And the purpose is to mimic cluster feeding, which can help boost supply. Supplement-wise, my favorites are Majka and Legendary Milk. I love that Majka focuses on nutrition because that is so crucial for breastfeeding moms. So they have oatmeal, protein powders, which I use all the time, lactation bites, all specially formulated to help with breast milk. But if you're looking for just pills to take, then Legendary Milk is awesome. I swear by their products, and they are linked down below. Question number 6 is, did your baby latch perfectly right away? And the answer is no. But honestly, the first couple days, you probably won't notice how a poor latch is affecting your nipples. But then after that, if that latch is shallow or baby's lips aren't flanged out when you're feeding them, oof, that is when it starts to hurt. So from the get-go, do your best to get your baby tummy to tummy with you, mouth around the areola, not just the nipple, and the top and the bottom lip flanged out like a fishy. The next question is, did you set an alarm to wake your baby to feed them? For my first, yes, because she had jaundice and I needed to feed her often to help flush out the bilirubin. But for my second, no, I did not. I just would let her wake me up when she was ready to feed. Next question up is, did you breastfeed baby number 1 when number 2 was born? And the answer is no. I stopped breastfeeding right before I got pregnant with my second. Lots of moms wonder if it's safe to breastfeed while pregnant, and the answer is yes. In most circumstances, it is. During a healthy pregnancy, it's totally safe to breastfeed, but it's likely that your milk supply will drop down a little bit at the end of your pregnancy, especially. So you want to be mindful of that if your baby is really dependent on your milk for their calories. For my own journey, my daughter was ready to wean. We were down to just a couple of feedings a day, and I knew I wanted my body to myself before being pregnant and then nursing again for baby number 2. The 9th question is, when did you get your period back while breastfeeding? Did it affect your supply? So for my first, I got it around 6 months postpartum, and with my second, I got it at 7 months and then lost it again at 9 months. And I think it's because I'm just nursing a lot more at this point with Ava, my second, than I did with Callie, my first. I'm still nursing at least once a night, oftentimes more. So I think my body has just stopped my period. And since I'm not trying to get pregnant currently, I'm totally fine with that. But when I do want to get pregnant again, I'll try to stop feeding at night to encourage my cycle to return. As far as my supply, yes, I do notice a dip in my supply for a few days leading up to my period and then 1 or 2 days into my period, but my babies would usually just nurse more often to get the extra milk. And if you do notice a significant dip, you can take a calcium magnesium supplement, which I'm actually taking now. And for maintenance, you can take 500 milligrams of calcium and 250 milligrams of magnesium all month long. And then once you start ovulating, you can increase it to 1500 milligrams of calcium and 750 milligrams of magnesium and continue that through the second or third day of your period. But of course, always talk to your doctor about that first before you begin taking it. Question number 10 is how to deal with a baby that is distracted during feedings. And oh my gosh, this was my first baby all of the time. And my advice to you is to control what you can and then let go of what you can't control. I would go into a dark room, feed after naps so that she was still drowsy and not fully awake. I'd use a sound machine, put her under my shirt, but if she didn't want to eat, I didn't stress out about it because I knew that she was going to eat when she was hungry. Your job as a mama is to offer your baby food, but you can't force them to eat. When they are ready and they're hungry, they are going to settle down enough to eat. Okay, I will do a few more questions and then I'll give you guys my top tips for breastfeeding. So the next question is, how did you manage breastfeeding a newborn with your firstborn? This is a question lots of moms have when they have toddlers to look after, and my tip is to have activities, toys, or devices that they can only have when mama is nursing. So get a box or a basket together of new developmentally appropriate toys or activities that only comes out when it's time to nurse baby. It's important that in the box are all things that your little one can do without help from you, because you're obviously going to have your hands full while you're nursing. So once you're done nursing, you'll put that box away, and this way it keeps it new and fun and exciting each time you pull it out when it's time to feed baby. Question number 12 is, did your supply drop when you started working out? And the answer is no. If I'm staying hydrated and eating enough, my milk supply is fine. Breast milk is made mostly of water though, so if you are dehydrated, chances are your milk supply is going to drop. So making sure you're staying hydrated, especially when you're being active, is really important. We're going to wrap up the questions in just a minute, but question 13 is, was it harder or easier than anticipated? And for me, what made breastfeeding so hard the first time was just a scary feeling that I was providing everything for her and this doubt in myself that I wasn't going to be enough. I didn't expect breastfeeding to be so tied to my emotions, but it really is one of the most personal experiences in the world, which is why I want to support mamas through their journey, whatever that looks like. Also, postpartum blues don't help because you're already a hormonal wreck, and so just expect to be a mess mama physically and emotionally, with milk all over you, tired, and yet so in love with this human it almost hurts because you just want to give them the very best. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. I didn't expect how easy it would be to nurse an older baby. They become really, really efficient eaters, so that's nice. And I love the convenience of breastfeeding. You can literally sustain a human from anywhere without anything else. We were hiking the other day and I was just out in nature feeding my baby, and it was so cool that I was able to provide everything she needed in that moment, no matter where I was. Question 14 is, how and when did you become comfortable with nursing in public? And I am so glad someone asked me this question because for a long time, I wasn't comfortable. But the more I breastfeed, the prouder I am that I can do this and the more normal it becomes. Our culture in the US has so over-sexualized women, and as a breastfeeding mom who is literally just feeding my baby, that is not my burden to bear. And so now I choose not to be ashamed or embarrassed about breastfeeding, which is the second coolest thing in the world that women can do next to giving birth. However, I am still discreet about breastfeeding. I often put Ava under my shirt, but now I don't feel like I have to or feel like I need to hide in a back room when I'm feeding her. Now, if you don't feel comfortable nursing in public yet, I encourage you to buy nursing-friendly clothes. Kindred Bravely has amazing bras and clothes that you can get that really make breastfeeding a lot easier in public, and then practice nursing in front of a mirror using a cover-up or a blanket. And I'll have all of those things linked down below. Okay, last question is, were there times you felt like giving up? And the answer is no, honestly. My mom breastfed all 6 of her kids, and all of the close women in my life who had kids before me also breastfed. So I never really believed I would do anything different. Plus, I knew how incredibly beneficial it is for both myself and my baby to breastfeed. During pregnancy, I even dreamt about breastfeeding, so it wasn't really an option for me not to be able to breastfeed. Now, I know that every mama's breastfeeding journey is different, and some are bumpier than others, and those first few weeks are almost always tough, especially if you've had a traumatic birth, your baby has an oral tie, or mama has a complication. But over and over again, I hear moms share stories of overcoming those challenges, or I'm personally able to help moms find solutions, and the victory they feel is so profound. So mama, if you can stick it out and get professional support, don't stick it out alone. Breastfeeding can become the best and the most satisfying journey. Okay, so really quick, let me give you my top 5 tips for your breastfeeding journey, no matter what kind of journey you are on. Number 1, understand what past experiences you've had with infant feeding and what beliefs you hold about it. Most women make up their mind about what their breastfeeding journey will look like before their baby is even born, sometimes even before pregnancy. So that's a really big one. Your experiences or encounters with breastfeeding, formula feeding, pumping, etc. are going to impact the way you approach your own breastfeeding journey. So sit with your thoughts and your feelings for some time, and maybe even write down your thoughts and some of those experiences that you've had with infant feeding, and see how it might be shaping your journey even now. Number 2 is, if you're pregnant, educate yourself now about breastfeeding. Studies show that women who receive prenatal lactation education increases their belief in their ability to breastfeed and increases the breastfeeding duration. Research also shows that when partners take part in that education, the duration of breastfeeding increases even more. If you're not pregnant, you will still benefit greatly from breastfeeding education. That is why with the Built to Birth course, I have part 2, which covers that postpartum period and includes the foundation of breastfeeding and what you need to know to really set yourself up for success. Number 3 is to put in the work to get a great latch. Here's a really brief checklist to help you get that great latch. Feed baby when they are awake and happy. Don't wait for them to start crying. Bring baby tummy to tummy with you. Bring their nose to your nipple, and when they open up their mouth wide, bring them to your breast. Do not bring your breast to them. Their mouth should cover much of the areola, and their lips need to be flanged out. If their bottom lip gets caught, like it often does, you just tug on their chin to help pop that lip out. Then bring their booty nice and close to you, as close as you can. If after 30 to 60 seconds the pain is still really bad on your nipple, make your finger into a little fish hook, put it in the side of their mouth, and unlatch them and try again. I know getting a good latch can be stressful, but it is so worth the work. I have a YouTube video that walks you through this whole process in depth, so check that out in the description down below. Tip number 4 is to know your why. Research all the benefits of breastfeeding and discover your own personal reasons why you're wanting to breastfeed. Your why is going to be your anchor when the seas get stormy. I have a video linked down below about the amazing benefits of breastfeeding for you to check out that might serve as a powerful anchor to your breastfeeding journey. Number 5 is to just trust yourself. We are so prone to doubting ourselves and our capabilities. Mama, in most circumstances, your body was built to breastfeed. Yes, there are situations that make it almost impossible, or sometimes completely impossible. And in those cases, we are so thankful for donor milk and formula to use. But normally, with the right information and the right professional and non-professional support, breastfeeding can be victorious for you and your little one. Affirmation meditations are so powerful in helping shape your thoughts to lead your body in the direction you want it to go. They're not just for birth, they're for everyday life, especially postpartum life. And the Built to Birth postpartum affirmations are created to help you lean into your innate ability to confidently and wisely mother your baby. And lastly, this is something I've learned recently, but it's to define your own success. Every breastfeeding journey is different, but no matter what it looks like, whether whether you're exclusively pumping, only breastfeeding and supplementing, or moving to formula feedings, your journey can be empowering and successful because you are the one who defines what success looks like for yourself and for your baby. No one wants better for your baby than you. So mama, you define the success of what your journey looks like. All right, mamas, that was a long one, but if you stuck with me, I hope you got some great tips, tricks, or just encouragement for your own breastfeeding journey. If you want loads more evidence-based information on pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, make sure to check out the Built to Birth course linked right down below. Bye, mamas.